I was born May 4th, 1939 in East St. Louis, Illinois. And I had a brother that had been born 6 years before me, or 7 years before me, 1932, in the same hospital in the same town, East St. Louis, Illinois. But my brother was born 6 days after my parents were married. So
Uh-huh.
it's
When did you start doing genealogy work?
I don't remember the year, but it was probably 2010, 2008, somewhere back in that time frame. My cousin, my mother's niece, my cousin, found me. She was doing genealogy research, and she did a Google search of my name and found my name listed amongst the staff of Springs Community Church in Colorado Springs. And so she sent me an email saying, "Are you the Rex Schultz that was so and so and so and so, or identified?" And so she contacted me, and I think we talked on the phone because she asked me, "What do you know about the genealogy of your dad?" Meaning my dad, Virgil Schultz. And I said, "I know absolutely nothing." She said, "You need to find out. Um, it's not in this day and age of internet and what you can do with your computer. You need to find out." And so that got me started. And
What was her name?
Joyce Marr,
Okay.
yeah, she had done research on the McElroy family and her Tanners. She was I think her name was Schronce, Scronce, Schronce. Because Granny she was one of seven. She was the middle child of seven, and she had three sisters and three brothers. And so most of the genealogy, or a lot of the genealogy and the McElroys, the boys came first, so they were older than Granny, my mom. So most of them were already gone when Joyce started doing her research, and her aunts were still alive. So she did a lot more on the girl side, if you will. But she didn't have very much information about my mom or her marriages or her two marriages. And
that was, what, a decade ago maybe? How long have you been doing this?
well, since 2008, 2009,
Yeah, okay,
something
so
like that.
Even more than that.
Yeah. So it'll soon be 20 years
Yeah.
that I've been
That's
searching. Because I found out that my father did not know his father. And so that told me a lot about his parenting skills. And he was married 4 times. My mother was not the last one that he married. He was married twice after my mother.
That explained a lot. Huh?
Yeah. And I really never lived with him. I lived with him. What I remember was living 3 or 4 months, 6 months just before I went to high school, and then 6 months after I graduated from college,
Mm-hmm.
or no, after I graduated high school.
Well, what are some of your favorite stories? What's your all-time favorite? Do you have a favorite?
About what?
About you.
About me.
Yeah, this is all about you. I'm recording this, so this can be your you time. This is me time. I get to talk about me.
Now the thing that I reflect on and look back on is what I did in college when I was an undergrad at LSU. I don't know how I got involved in like campus politics and served on the student council, was elected president of the student body in the College of Agriculture. I don't know how all of that happened, but it did, and I must have enjoyed it because I was heavily involved in campus politics and was instrumental in organizing an ag fraternity on campus, a fraternity that had been deactivated 30 years before I was a student there. And the dean and a couple of his buddies were members of that fraternity or knew about the fraternity and wanted to reactivate it and asked me to do that. And so I did. But just all of that leadership and involvement in campus life, and not living on campus, being married, living off campus. I don't know how I did all of that, and I don't know what was driving me at that point in time. But it did, and things. I suppose it was. I could give the Lord a lot of credit for leading because things just happened. It wasn't planned. Like me, I was walking through at a livestock show, walking through the barn with the dean of the College of Agriculture. He and I were talking. I don't know what we were talking about, but we were just walking through and ran into the president of the Federal Land Bank, who happened to be walking through the barn the opposite direction. We stopped and talked, and so the dean said, "Do you know Rex Schultz?" And Mr. Ryan, John Ryan was his name, and Mr. Ryan said, "No, I don't know him." Well, he told him about me and said, he's been an outstanding student. He's a leader on the campus, and so it's good that he got to meet you. And probably less than 6 months later, I went to the land bank in New Orleans as a part of a class. The professor took the class of probably 12 students. We drove down to New Orleans and visited the farm credit banks, and I got to see Mr. Ryan again, and he remembered me from the barn, and so he asked me what I was going to do when I graduated, and I told him I was going to work for Farm Credit. And he said, "Well, we hired a guy right out of college in 1947, and that didn't work out very well. So we said we would never do that again." And so he said, "I don't think we're going to be hiring anybody right out of college." I said, "Okay." I said, "I know that there are 36 banks in the system, so if you don't hire me, that's fine. I'll be applying at other banks because that's what I want to do." And turns out before the summer was over, they hired me at the land bank in New Orleans.
Tell me some more. What do you remember early years? Any memories of?
I have, I don't know what you would call them, my snapshots maybe of just different events. Like when because I've seen a picture of some kids standing in front of a bush, it looked like a birthday party. And I must have been 8 or 9 or 10 years old, something like that. I remember living in Baton Rouge on Evangeline Street. I remember some of the kids that lived in the neighborhood. I don't remember their names, but I remember them. I remember our next door neighbor had a son who was an adult, and he was every Saturday is what I remember him working on his car. And he would be sliding under his car, working on his car, or under the hood, working on his car. Their last name was Aaron, Aaron, and they took us to church, to my sister and I. I don't remember Jim living with us there. He's in a picture or two that I've seen, but I don't know how long he lived with us there, or when he left, or how he left, or I don't remember. I don't know any of that. But I remember the Aarons taking us to church, and it was a Pentecostal holy roller kind of church, and seeing people and falling down on the floor, and I just have visions of that that service where people were being slain in the spirit, and standing up on the bench, so people were rolling around underneath the benches.
Literally
It's-
holy rollers, right?
Literally holy rollers, and that's what I remember. But I don't remember. I remember then living out in the country in Baker. I don't remember moving out there, but I remember what I remember was the principal of our elementary school transferred to the high school in Baker. So the principal of the school, he knew us in Baton Rouge. He also then knew us when we went to Baker. The same guy, Summers was his name. He was the principal of the elementary school, then he became principal of the high school. But I don't remember much about the high school. I don't remember. I remember living in Baker and cutting grass and riding horses and being punished a lot. Having almost every day I would get in trouble, and I always said it was my sister getting in me, tattling on me. But I've told the story about when Granny and Granddad came and got us and took us to Indiana, but I don't really remember any of that. I know it happened because we were there, but I don't really remember any of that.
Do you remember first going to the farm?
I have some recollection of being there and trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, and but I don't remember any close connections with Harold McGowan. He always seemed to me to be kind of a gruff, rough, not very compassionate or loving. The idea of him loving me never occurred to me. But I knew that he was accepting of us, but kind of reluctantly accepting, is what I remember. I don't remember him being harsh or mean or anything like that, but he was sort of doing his own thing, and if he needed some help, he would ask, but most of the time he was not engaging.
Yeah, it was when we went up to Indiana and we drove up to the farm, it was surreal because it had been, I don't know how many, 50 years probably since I'd been there. And I remember just driving up and going, wow, this looks the same.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how I remember it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of still looks the same.
Yeah.